There's a new blueprint to winning a national championship, and LSU has unlocked it. You know who unlocked it was Brian Kelly, the guy that folks have been talking down on for better part of the last decade or so as a head coach. And I say talking down in the sense of I don't think anybody questions Brian Kelly as a good head coach in college football. They're going to be talking about him as one of the best head coaches in college football at the end of this season. Before we get to that, they'll talk about the blueprint. When you look at the previous eras of the college football postseason in terms of how you win a national championship, there's been a couple of different formulas. There's the BCS formula, which is have the best players. Pretty straightforward. Nick Saban, every single year it felt like, has the best roster. Just about every single year, winning the national championship. Same thing with those Ohio State teams that won it. Same thing. You hear where I'm saying. Urban Meyer in Florida, when you have the best roster, you would win the national championship more often than not in the BCS era. Then you had the 4-team playoff formula to win a national championship, which was add some of the best players via the transfer portal. But for the most part, it's like bring back the core nucleus of what you had a year ago when you were so close to winning it the year before. Think Michigan, the unfinished business. You lose to TCU in the playoff the year before. A lot of pieces come back. Hey, I want to go win a national championship for Jim Harbaugh. You go win the whole thing and beat Washington in 2023. Then last year, Ohio State. A lot of guys that could have gone pro, right? Jack Sawyer, Tui Maloau, guys that chose to come back. And then you also go to the portal, get a Will Howard, get a Caleb Downs, kind of add to that nucleus in a pretty crucial way, go win the national championship. If and when LSU wins the national title, because I've told y'all, man, on this show, I've picked LSU very openly, very boldly, very confidently, told you I think the Tigers are going to win the national championship at the end of this season. The 12-team model formula is going to be bring back your quarterback and then add some key pieces around him in the transfer portal to make sure that you go win the national championship. I want to rewind a little bit because Ohio State, I included them in that 4-team model to win the national championship. They are, I think, in that vein, but this is going to be, I think, almost like the 2.0 of what you saw from the 4-team model, okay? Because Ohio State, they didn't bring back a quarterback. They went out and got a quarterback in Will Howard. But if I'm LSU right now, what have they done this offseason? Broke out the Amex, broke out the black card, said no limit, Brian Kelly, Austin Thomas, go crazy. Go get yourself some key pieces to maximize what you have at quarterback with Garrett Nussmeier. Because here's the deal. He's not coming back another year, man. He's here for a good time, not a long time. And across college football right now, a lot of other teams, especially in the SEC, think they have a quarterback. Don't know 110% they have a quarterback. At least we don't right now. I can't promise you Gunnar Stockton's going to be as good as Carson Beck was the last 2 years in Athens. I can't promise you Arch Manning's going to be as good as Quinn Ewers was the last 2 years in Austin. Like I wish I could tell you. If I could tell you, I'd make a lot more money in Las Vegas and bet some big bucks and pick a national champion and pick a lot of other things correctly to make sure my bank account looked better. But here's the deal. LSU, they know they have a quarterback. And with them knowing they have a quarterback, they're going to make sure that they maximize that relative to the rest of the landscape. So look at what they did via the portal. Barry and Brown, speedster from Kentucky on the outside. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, we've talked about him. Touchdown machine a couple years ago in Norman. On the defensive side, go get Patrick Payton from Florida State. Jack Pyburn on the edge. Like, they've done a lot across this roster to make sure it's coming down to, okay, we have a guy at quarterback. We're not going to have this conversation after the year of, well, we had a quarterback. However, if we could just have been better on defense, if we just had got him some weapons, nope, you're not saying that. You're not saying that because of what you did with this top 2 portal class that GM Austin Thomas has done a very good job assembling. It's kind of like a leave no doubt mentality. I mean, great steak restaurants do this, believe it or not. You maximize what you do best, and you don't let anything else take away from that, right? The steak is awesome. I'm not having a conversation about, well, the appetizers weren't that great. Well, the rolls the ambiance kind of sucked. You're not having those conversations at the best restaurants. Why? Because they know we got a great product. Our centerpiece here is phenomenal. We're going to make sure that you leave remembering the ribeye, but you're remembering that ribeye because you're not having conversations around, well, the whole vibe was off. Well, that mac and cheese we had wasn't that great. Not having that conversation, you're maximizing what you do best. That's what LSU is doing here in 2025. Now, going back to what I said about this formula, there's a lot of teams, I think, when we look at 2026, that if and when this works for LSU, I think we'll take a quick look at the yellow notepad and say, man, maybe that's the formula for us to follow. Like, I have no idea as to what Florida is going to bring back in 2026, but I know that DJ Lagway will have to play another year of college football. And if Florida gets to like that 8-9 win range and they bring Billy Napier back for another year, they're going to say, okay, how do we make sure we get to where we want to go? Because who knows what everyone else has in college football at the quarterback position. If we got a guy, let's go make sure we're not having second guesses about maximizing him in 2026. I think you could see Texas be in the same vein. Arch Manning, I think he's going to be back for 2 years. Or I think he's going to be back after this season, having 2 years as a starter in Austin. Pretty safe to assume that Steve Sarkisian is going to make sure he has what he needs around him. John Machir at Oklahoma. So we keep going down the line here. I think when LSU does this, it's going to unlock another way of thinking, or maybe another way of doing things that some teams in the college football world right now, I'm sure, are privy to and thinking about, but it becomes much more in your face when LSU wins a national championship by doing it this way. So I know Ohio State, not technically in that 4-team model with how they won the national championship, but they followed a similar blueprint to what Michigan did the year before. Penn State's kind of in that vein this year. But I think that when that happens this year, a lot of people are going to follow suit with what LSU does this coming season, which, again, I'm telling you, winning the national championship. That's one part of this. But we got to make sure we address this too. We can't let everyone else off easy on this. When this happens, a lot of people are going to start asking the question, well, hey, Brian Kelly got himself a national championship. Where does he rank among the best coaches in college football? Weren't you just the person saying Brian Kelly couldn't win the big one? Weren't you just the person saying Brian Kelly wasn't good enough for the national championship? Couldn't win it all in big games? Did less with more? Wasn't that what you... Don't change your tune now, because they were saying this around Ryan Day. They said this about Jim Harbaugh for a long time. They said this about Kirby Smart for a while. Said this about Dabo Swinney for a long time. Very funny how one season, quite frankly, one game can change the entire narrative around a head coach. Brian Kelly's been one of the best coaches in college football. Now, I understand when you get that national championship, you get a little pass to a different area of the club. You get kind of behind the velvet rope, if you will. But understand now, Brian Kelly, just because he wins one game in the national title game, which would be a big win, doesn't mean that he's just a drastically different coach. He's been the same guy. I think what Austin Thomas, as the GM at LSU, has done for him with that roster and the continuity on the staff and bringing back Garrett Nussmeier, all those things cater to him, I think, having a better chance for success in 2025. But make no mistake, he's been one of the best coaches. But understand, that'll be the discussion that happens when Brian Kelly and when LSU win a national championship here in 2025.